My legs gave out before I made it to the chair. I just sort of collapsed onto the edge of the kitchen counter, gripping the granite with both hands, staring at the text message on my phone like it was written in a language I didn't understand. For words from Raymond Whitfield, my lawyer of 22 years. Phil. Don't sign anything. Then, 3 seconds later, a second message. Call me immediately. Do not go to Andrea's tonight. I'm serious. I read it twice. 3 times. My coat was already on. My car keys were in my hand. I'd even packed a bottle of that Okanagan Pinot Noir my daughter loves because she'd called me yesterday, all sweetness and warmth. Dad, we're doing a family dinner on Saturday. Caleb's been asking about you nonstop. I'm making that lamb stew you taught me from Mom's recipe. Please come, okay? You've been alone too much lately. How do you say no to that? Your only daughter, your only grandchild, your dead wife's recipe. You don't. Or at least, I didn't think you could. I set the wine bottle down on the counter next to my keys and called Raymond. He picked up before the first ring finished. Phil. His voice was different. Tight. Controlled, the way he sounds in a courtroom when he's about to dismantle someone's argument, except now it was aimed at me. Where are you right now? Home. I'm at home. Raymond, what the hell is going on? Stay there. Lock your front door. I'm leaving my office now. I'll be at your place in 25 minutes. Do not call Andrea. Do not text her. Do not answer if she calls you. Can you do that for me? I wanted to argue. I wanted to say he was being dramatic, that whatever legal matter had gotten him wound up could wait until Monday. But I'd known Raymond since Dorothy was alive, since we used to have him and his wife over for barbecues in the backyard. He wasn't a man who panicked. And right now, underneath that professional composure, I could hear something that sounded a lot like fear. I locked the front door. I took off my coat. I sat down in the living room in the chair that still faces Dorothy's chair, even though hers has been empty for 5 years now. 5 years since pancreatic cancer took her in 11 weeks. 5 years of learning how to be alone in a house that was built for 2. I'm 71 years old. I retired at 63 after 37 years as a structural engineer. I helped design bridges and overpasses across Ontario. My hands built things that hold the weight of thousands of people every single day. And sitting in that chair, waiting for my lawyer to arrive with news so bad he wouldn't say it over the phone, I felt like the ground beneath me was cracking. Raymond arrived in exactly 23 minutes. I know because I watched the clock the entire time. He came in carrying a leather briefcase that looked heavier than usual, and he didn't bother with small talk. No how are you, no comment about the weather. He sat at my dining room table, the one Dorothy and I bought at that antique shop in Merrickville the year we got married, and he started pulling out documents. Phil, I need you to listen carefully. 3 days ago, your daughter Andrea and her husband Wesley filed an application at the Ontario Superior Court of Justice. He paused, and I watched his jaw tighten. They're seeking to have you declared incapable of managing your own finances and personal care. They want to be appointed as your legal guardians under the Substitute Decisions Act. I remember the exact sensation. It was like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed. Not pain exactly, but pressure. A weight that hadn't been there a second ago. That's ridiculous, I said. My voice sounded far away. I pay my own bills. I do my own taxes. I drive. I volunteer at the Ottawa Food Bank every Tuesday and Thursday. I just finished reading a 900-page biography of Laurier last week. There's nothing wrong with my mind. I know that, Phil. Raymond's eyes were steady, but sad. The question is why your daughter is trying to convince a judge otherwise. He laid it out for me piece by piece, the way he'd lay out a case for a client. Clinical. Thorough. Devastating. My house in Westboro, the one Dorothy and I bought in 1989 for $212,000, is now assessed at approximately $2.1 million. The Ottawa real estate market had been very kind to us over the decades. My registered accounts, my pension from the engineering firm, and my non-registered investments totaled approximately $1.7 million. My life insurance policy, still active, was worth another $400,000. All told, my estate was valued at just over $4.2 million. I knew I was comfortable. Dorothy and I had never been flashy. We drove practical cars, took modest vacations, put money away every month like clockwork. But hearing Raymond lay out the numbers like evidence in a trial made my stomach turn. Because suddenly my life savings didn't feel like security. They felt like a target. Andrea knows about the house value, I said slowly. We talked about it at Thanksgiving. She said I should sell and downsize. I thought she was being practical. She wasn't being practical, Phil. She was doing math. Raymond opened his laptop. Your daughter and Wesley are in severe financial trouble. Wesley's consulting firm lost its biggest client 18 months ago. They refinanced their home in Barhaven, took out a second mortgage. Total debt on the property is around $780,000. On top of that, they invested $350,000 in Wesley's brother's tech startup, which folded last spring. Caleb's tuition at his private school in Ottawa South runs $32,000 a year. And their line of credit is maxed at $120,000. I felt dizzy. How do you know all this? Because they submitted their financial records as part of the application. They're arguing that you need protection, that your cognitive decline puts your substantial assets at risk, and that they, as your closest family members, are the most appropriate parties to manage your affairs. Their financial situation is supposed to show the court they have the means and stability to care for you. Instead, it shows exactly why they want access to your money. He turned the laptop toward me. Look at this. He showed me their petition. I read it with my own two eyes, my daughter's name on the signature line, her husband's beside it. The words swam. Exhibit A was a collection of photographs taken over the past 8 months. Me at the Loblaws on Richmond Road, standing in the cleaning supply aisle with what they described as a confused and disoriented expression. I remember that day. I was trying to find the specific wood polish Dorothy always used on the dining table. They'd moved it to a different shelf. Exhibit B was a letter from Dr. Sanjay Mehta, our family doctor for 15 years. He wrote that during a routine visit in March, I had seemed uncertain about my current medications and had difficulty recalling the date of my last blood work. What the letter didn't mention was that I'd come in with a sinus infection so bad I could barely see straight, and the receptionist had scheduled me 2 weeks early by mistake, so of course I didn't remember when the blood work was supposed to be. Exhibit C was a statement from Wesley himself, describing an incident at their Thanksgiving dinner where I allegedly became confused about which grandchild was which. I have one grandchild. Caleb. What actually happened was I accidentally called him by his middle name, James, which is Dorothy's father's name. I'd been looking at old photo albums that morning and the name was fresh in my mind. A slip of the tongue, nothing more. Every single piece of evidence was a normal moment in a normal life, repackaged as proof of deterioration. This is fraud, I said. The words came out quiet, almost a whisper. Yes, Raymond said. Under the criminal code, this could constitute fraud over $5,000, and potentially elder abuse under Ontario law. And Phil, it's more common than you think. I've seen 3 cases like this in the past 2 years alone. Adult children who can't manage their own finances deciding that their parents' money should be their safety net. He closed the laptop. The hearing is set for 17 days from now. They moved quickly, probably hoping to catch you off guard. If you'd gone to dinner tonight and signed anything, a power of attorney, a trust document, anything at all, it would have been entered as evidence that you were willingly transferring control. The dinner. The lamb stew. Mom's recipe. It was a setup, I said. I believe so, yes. Something broke inside me then. I don't know how else to describe it. It was like a bone you didn't know you had, somewhere deep in the center of your chest, just snapped clean. My daughter. My only child. The girl I taught to skate on the Rideau Canal. The girl who held my hand at Dorothy's funeral and told me we'd get through it together. She was trying to have me declared incompetent so she could sell my house and pay off her husband's debts. What happens if they win? My voice was barely audible. Raymond answered carefully. They become your court-appointed guardians. They control your bank accounts, your investments, your property. They can sell the house, move you into a long-term care facility, make your medical decisions. You lose the legal right to manage your own life. And based on their financial situation, Phil, I'd expect your house to be listed within 90 days. The house where Dorothy and I raised Andrea. Where we hosted every Christmas, every birthday, every ordinary Tuesday night dinner that I'd give anything to have back. Where Dorothy planted her rose garden in the backyard, the one I still tend every summer even though I'm terrible at it compared to her. Where she died, in our bedroom, on a Sunday morning in October, with the leaves turning gold outside the window and my hand in hers. They can't take this house, I said. Not this house. Not if we fight. And Phil, we're going to fight. But I need you to understand what that means. This isn't just a legal battle. This is going to cost you your relationship with your daughter. Maybe permanently. I looked at the documents on the table. I looked at my daughter's signature. Tell me what to do. Raymond laid out the plan like a military operation. First, documentation. Starting immediately, I was to keep a detailed daily journal. Every activity, every conversation, every decision I made. Timestamps. Details. A running record proving that my mind was as sharp as it had ever been. Second, an independent assessment. Not Dr. Mehta, who they'd already co-opted with half-truths and selective information. I needed a geriatric psychiatrist, someone with no connection to my family, whose evaluation would carry weight in court. Third, and this was the hardest part, I had to pretend I didn't know. I had to keep talking to Andrea like nothing had changed. If she found out I was preparing a defense, Raymond said, she might accelerate the timeline or destroy evidence. I had to be the trusting, slightly confused father she thought I was. That night, after Raymond left, I sat in the living room for a long time. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there in the dark, in the house Dorothy and I built our life in, listening to the silence and trying to reconcile two truths that couldn't both exist. My daughter loves me. My daughter is trying to destroy me. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of my life, worse than the months after Dorothy died, because at least grief is honest. This was something else entirely. This was performance. I called Andrea on Monday, kept my voice light. Hey sweetheart, sorry I couldn't make it Saturday. My back was acting up. Can we reschedule? Oh Dad, of course. She sounded so warm, so concerned. Are you okay? Do you need me to come over? I can bring some of that muscle rub you like. No, I'm fine. Just getting old, I guess. She laughed. You're not old, Dad. You're vintage. The same joke she'd been making since she was a teenager. It used to make me smile. Now it made me want to throw the phone across the room. I met with Dr. Anita Okafor on Wednesday. She was a geriatric psychiatrist at the Ottawa Hospital, highly recommended, zero connection to my family. She put me through 4 hours of testing over 2 sessions. Cognitive assessments, memory tests, reasoning exercises, problem-solving scenarios. At the end of the second session, she sat across from me and folded her hands. Mr. Aldridge, I can say with absolute professional certainty that you show no signs of cognitive impairment, dementia, or diminished capacity. Your scores are consistently above average for your age group. Your working memory is excellent. Your executive function is strong. Your reasoning and judgment are fully intact. Frankly, you're sharper than most of the 50-year-olds I evaluate. I thanked her. I managed to hold it together until I got to my car in the parking garage. Then I sat behind the wheel and cried like I haven't cried since Dorothy's funeral. Not because I was relieved about the test results. I already knew I was fine. I cried because I shouldn't have had to prove it. Because my own daughter had put me in a position where a stranger had to certify that I was still a person. The performance continued. Andrea called me the following Saturday. "Dad, I've been thinking. You know, you're managing a lot on your own. The house, the finances, all of Mom's old accounts. Wesley and I were talking, and we think it might be a good idea to set up a power of attorney. Just as a precaution. You know, in case anything ever happened. Not that it will, but just to be safe." There it was. Right on schedule, exactly as Raymond predicted. The casual suggestion, the reasonable framing, the emphasis on safety and precaution. Like she was offering to help me change a light bulb, not trying to seize legal control of everything I owned. "That's an interesting idea," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Let me think about it." "Don't overthink it, Dad. It's really just a formality. Wesley knows a lawyer who can draw it up quickly. We could have it done by next week." Wesley knows a lawyer. Not Raymond, my lawyer of 22 years. A different lawyer. One who would presumably be working in Andrea's interests, not mine. "I'll think about it, sweetheart. No rush." There was a pause. A tiny, almost imperceptible shift in her tone. "Actually, Dad, there kind of is a timeline on these things. Legally speaking. It's better to do it while everything's in order, you know?" Was that a veiled reference to the hearing she'd already filed for? A hint that if I didn't sign willingly, the court would force the issue? I couldn't tell anymore. I couldn't tell where my daughter ended and the strategy began. "I'll let you know," I said, and changed the subject to the weather. It was Caleb who changed everything. My grandson called me on a Wednesday evening, about 10 days before the hearing. He was 16, quiet, serious, the kind of kid who read books instead of playing video games and asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. Dorothy used to say he had an old soul. I think she was right. "Grandpa, can I come over?" His voice was low, almost whispering. "I need to talk to you about something." "Just you? Nobody else?" "Of course, buddy. Everything okay?" "I can't explain on the phone. I'll bike over." 20 minutes. He arrived in 18, his face flushed, his hair sticking up from the helmet. He came inside, looked around like he was checking whether anyone had followed him, and then sat at the dining table across from me. The same spot where Raymond had sat 2 weeks earlier. "Grandpa, I need to show you something. But you have to promise me you won't tell Mom and Dad that I showed you. Promise me." I looked at my grandson. His hands were shaking. He was terrified. "Caleb, whatever it is, you can tell me." He pulled out his phone. "I found emails," he said. "Between Mom and Dad." I wasn't snooping, I swear. Mom asked me to check something on her laptop last week, and her email was open. I saw the subject line and I couldn't stop reading. Then I screenshot everything and sent it to myself before I deleted the set record. He turned the phone toward me and I started reading. The first email was from Andrea to Wesley, dated 4 months ago. Subject line, Dad situation, timeline. "Wes, I talked to the lawyer again. He says we need at least 6 months of documentation before filing. I've been keeping the log like he suggested. Got a good photo of Dad at Loblaws looking confused last week. Also, I told Dr. Mehta that I'm worried about Dad's memory and asked him to note anything unusual at his next appointment. He seemed receptive. We need to be systematic about this." The second email was Wesley's reply. "Good. Keep it up. I've been doing the numbers. If we get guardianship, the house sale alone clears our mortgage and the line of credit. Liquidating his portfolio covers the startup losses and gives us a cushion. We move him somewhere more affordable, one of those assisted living places out in Kemptville or Smiths Falls, Much cheaper than keeping him in Westboro. He's 71. He'll adjust. The third email was Andrea again, sent 3 weeks ago. The petition is drafted. Filing next week. I'm inviting Dad for dinner on the 15th. I want to get him to sign a POA that night. If he signs before the hearing, it strengthens our case because it shows he's already confused enough to hand over control without understanding what he's signing. If he doesn't sign, we still have the hearing. I want to get him to sign a POA that night. Without understanding what he's signing. I read it again. And again. Each time hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something less devastating. They didn't. The last email was from Wesley, 2 days ago. What if your dad's lawyer gets involved? Andrea's reply was the one that broke me. Raymond Whitfield is an old man himself. He does wills and property transactions. He's not equipped for this kind of proceeding. And even if Dad fights it, the legal fees will drain his estate. $200,000 in court costs. Either way, we win. We either get guardianship, or we bleed his savings until there's nothing left worth fighting over. Either way, the house goes on the market by spring. Either way, we win. I set the phone down on the table. Caleb was crying silently, tears running down his cheeks, his jaw clenched tight. "Grandpa, I'm so sorry." He could barely get the words out. I didn't know what to do. They're my parents, and they're talking about you like you're already gone. Like you're just a number in a spreadsheet. I couldn't let them do this. I stood up and walked around the table and pulled my grandson into my arms. He buried his face in my shoulder and sobbed. 16 years old, and he'd just made the bravest, most painful decision of his young life. He'd chosen truth over loyalty. He'd chosen his grandfather over his parents. "You did the right thing, Caleb." I held him tighter. "You did exactly the right thing." "Are they going to take your house? The house where you and Grandma lived?" "No, buddy. They're not. Not now." I called Raymond that night. When I read him the emails, there was a long silence on the line. "Phil, this changes the entire landscape. This isn't just evidence of incapacity fraud. This is documented, premeditated financial exploitation of an elderly person. They planned this for months. They manipulated your physician. They staged evidence. And they put it all in writing." His voice shifted. That tone I recognized from decades of watching him work. Sharp. Focused. Ready. "We're not just defending anymore, Phil. We're filing a counterclaim. Fraud. Conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Exploitation of a vulnerable person. And I'm going to make sure the judge sees every single one of these emails." He paused. "But Phil, I need to ask. Are you prepared for what happens to Caleb? If his parents find out he's the one who showed you these emails, there will be consequences for him." I looked at Caleb, who was sitting on my couch, exhausted, a mug of hot chocolate in his hands. My grandson, who'd just set fire to his own family to save mine. "Whatever happens," I said, "Caleb has a home here. No matter what." The hearing arrived on a gray Tuesday morning in November. The kind of day where the Ottawa sky sits low and heavy and the whole city feels like it's holding its breath. I walked into the courthouse with Raymond on one side and Caleb on the other. My grandson had insisted on coming. I tried to talk him out of it. "You don't have to be there, buddy. It's going to be difficult." He looked at me with Dorothy's eyes, that same quiet determination she used to get when she'd made up her mind about something. "I want to be there, Grandpa. I want them to see me sitting next to you." Across the courtroom, Andrea and Wesley sat with their lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit who kept checking his phone. Andrea was dressed carefully, conservatively. She looked like a concerned daughter. She looked like the role she'd been rehearsing for months. She glanced at Caleb sitting beside me and something crossed her face. Surprise, maybe. or the first flicker of understanding that something had gone very wrong with her plan. Justice Henri Bouchard presided. He was in his early 60s, silver-haired, with the kind of face that gave nothing away. He'd been on the bench for over 20 years, and according to Raymond, he had a particular distaste for cases where family members tried to exploit aging parents. Andrea's lawyer went first. He presented their case methodically. The photographs at Loblaws. Dr. Mehta's notes about my apparent confusion. Wesley's statement about the Thanksgiving incident. He painted a portrait of a widowed father in quiet decline, a man whose children were stepping in with love and responsibility to protect him from himself. Your Honor, Mr. Aldridge is a 71-year-old man living alone, managing a substantial estate of over $4 million with no oversight. His family has observed a pattern of confusion, memory lapses, and disorientation consistent with early cognitive decline. Ms. Aldridge Pemberton and Mr. Pemberton are merely seeking to ensure that their father's assets and well-being are protected before an irreversible error is made. Then it was Raymond's turn. He stood slowly, buttoned his jacket, and addressed the court with the precision of a man who had been waiting for exactly this moment. Your Honor, I'd like to begin by submitting the psychiatric evaluation conducted by Dr. Anita Okafor, a geriatric specialist at the Ottawa Hospital with no prior relationship to Mr. Aldridge or his family. Dr. Okafor conducted a comprehensive 4-hour assessment over 2 sessions. Her conclusion is unequivocal. Mr. Aldridge shows 0 signs of cognitive impairment. His memory, reasoning, and executive function are all above average for his age group. He handed the report to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. Justice Bouchard read it carefully, his expression unchanged. Raymond continued. I'd also like to address the specific evidence presented by the applicants. The photograph taken at the Loblaws on Richmond Road, showing Mr. Aldridge allegedly confused in the cleaning supply aisle. Mr. Aldridge was searching for a specific wood polish product that his late wife used for 30 years. The store had recently reorganized its shelving. He was browsing, Your Honor. Not deteriorating. The medical note from Dr. Mehta, describing apparent confusion during a routine visit. Mr. Aldridge was suffering from a severe sinus infection that day. The appointment was also incorrectly scheduled by the clinic 2 weeks early. Under those circumstances, uncertainty about medication timing is not evidence of incapacity. It's evidence of being sick. The Thanksgiving dinner incident. Mr. Aldridge momentarily called his grandson by the grandson's middle name, James. James was also the name of Mr. Aldridge's late father-in-law. He'd been looking at family photo albums that morning. A slip of the tongue, not a symptom. Raymond paused, letting the silence build. But Your Honor, the most important evidence I have isn't about what Mr. Aldridge can or cannot remember. It's about what his daughter and son-in-law have been planning. He submitted the printed emails. Every single one. I watched Andrea's face as Raymond read the key passages aloud in the courtroom. He's 71. He'll adjust. I told Dr. Mehta that I'm worried about Dad's memory and asked him to note anything unusual. I want to get him to sign a POA that night. Without understanding what he's signing. Either way, we win. Either way, the house goes on the market by spring. The courtroom was silent. Justice Bouchard's face, which had given nothing away all morning, was now set in stone. He read through the emails twice, slowly, flipping pages back and forth. Andrea's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, those emails were obtained without my client's knowledge or consent. There are serious questions about their admissibility. Justice Bouchard looked at him over his reading glasses. Counsel, this is not a criminal trial. This is a capacity hearing under the Substitute Decisions Act. I have broad discretion regarding what evidence I consider, and I am very much going to consider these communications. He turned his gaze to Andrea. In fact, I'd like to hear from your client directly. Ms. Aldridge Pemberton, can you explain to me why you wrote that you want your father to sign a power of attorney, and I quote the substance of your words, without understanding what he's signing? Andrea stood. Her composure cracked for the first time. Your Honor, that email was taken out of context. I was speaking hypothetically. We were just discussing estate planning options. Hypothetically. Justice Bouchard's voice was flat. You hypothetically manipulated your father's physician. You hypothetically photographed your father in a grocery store as evidence of decline. You hypothetically calculated the proceeds from selling his home. And you hypothetically planned to relocate him to an assisted living facility in Kemptville so you could liquidate his estate to cover your husband's failed investments. Your Honor, please, Andrea started, but the judge raised his hand. I've heard enough. Justice Bouchard removed his glasses and set them on the bench. He looked at the documents in front of him for what felt like an eternity. This application is dismissed with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. The evidence before me shows not a father in cognitive decline, but a daughter and son-in-law in financial distress who systematically manufactured a false narrative of incapacity to gain control of a $4.2 million estate. He turned to Andrea and Wesley. I'm issuing a restraining order. Ms. Aldridge Pemberton and Mr. Pemberton are prohibited from contacting Mr. Aldridge or approaching within 200 meters of his residence for a minimum period of 2 years. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the Crown Attorney's Office for investigation of potential criminal charges, including fraud over $5,000 and elder abuse under the Criminal Code of Canada. He looked at me. His expression softened, just slightly. Mr. Aldridge, I'm sorry you find yourself here today. No parent should have to defend their competency against their own child's manufactured claims. I'm ordering that all legal costs associated with your defense be paid by the applicants. I would also strongly recommend you review and update your estate plans with independent legal counsel to protect yourself going forward. Andrea was crying now. Not quiet tears. Deep, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. But I'd watched her act for months. I'd listened to her warm phone calls and loving invitations while she plotted to take everything I had. I couldn't tell if these tears were real, and the fact that I couldn't tell was the most devastating part of all. Dad, she called out as the court began to clear. Dad, please. I can explain. It's not what it looks like. We were trying to help. We were worried about you. I stopped. I turned around. I looked at my daughter. My only child. The girl whose first word was Dada. The girl who fell off her bicycle on the path along the canal and I carried her half a kilometer home while she bled all over my favorite shirt. The girl who gave the eulogy at Dorothy's funeral that made every person in the church weep. I looked at her and I said the hardest words I've ever spoken. Andrea, I read the emails. Every one. You weren't trying to help me. You were trying to erase me. You looked at your father and saw a line item. A house to be sold. A portfolio to be liquidated. A problem to be moved to Kemptville and forgotten. I paused because my voice was about to break and I wasn't going to let it. Not here. Not in front of her. Your mother would be devastated. Not angry. Dorothy was never angry. She'd be devastated that the daughter she loved more than anything in this world became someone who could do this. I turned away. Caleb was standing at the courtroom door, waiting for me. He didn't say anything. He just took my hand like he used to when he was little and we'd walk along the canal path in the autumn. Let's go home, Grandpa. Let's go home. Raymond walked us to the car. He was quiet for a moment, then spoke. Phil, I have to ask. How are you doing? I looked at Caleb, who was buckling his seatbelt in the passenger seat. Honestly, Raymond, I don't know. I feel like I've been in a car accident and I'm still waiting to find out what's broken. But I know one thing. That kid in there just sacrificed his relationship with his parents to protect me. And I'm going to spend whatever time I have left making sure that sacrifice wasn't for nothing. Raymond nodded. He's a remarkable young man. He's Dorothy's grandson. I managed half a smile. She'd expect nothing less. That evening, I called Raymond from home. Caleb was in the guest room, which was about to become his room, unpacking the backpack he'd brought. "Raymond, I need to update my will. Everything. The house, the accounts, the investments, the insurance. I want a trust established for Caleb's education and future. Andrea receives nothing." The line was quiet for a moment. "Phil, that's a significant decision. Are you certain?" "I've never been more certain of anything. And Raymond, I want the will to include a detailed explanation of why. I want every email documented, every manufactured incident described, every lie catalogued. If Andrea ever tries to contest it, any judge who reads that document will understand exactly what happened. I'll draft it by the end of the week." Caleb moved in permanently 3 days later. Andrea and Wesley had told him to choose. "Come home and we'll work this out, or stay with your grandfather and you're not welcome back." He was 16 years old and his parents gave him an ultimatum: their child or their scheme. He chose me. Or maybe he chose what was right and I was just fortunate enough to be on that side. We fell into a rhythm faster than I expected. Breakfast together before school. He'd make toast and I'd make eggs, the same way Dorothy used to, slightly runny in the center. He'd do homework at the dining table while I read in my chair. On weekends, we drove out to Gatineau Park and hiked the trails, something I hadn't done since Dorothy was well enough to walk them with me. Caleb pointed out birds and I pretended to know their names, and eventually we both started carrying a field guide. He joined me at the food bank on Tuesdays. The regulars there started asking after him. "How's that grandson of yours, Phil? Sharp kid." Dorothy would be proud. She would. She really would. One evening in February, Caleb and I were in the backyard. The snow was thick, but we'd bundled up because I wanted to show him where Dorothy's rose garden had been, where I was planning to replant in the spring. "Grandpa," he said, his breath making little clouds in the cold air, "do you think Mom will ever understand what she did?" I considered the question carefully. People have a remarkable ability to justify their own actions, Caleb. Your mother probably doesn't see herself as the villain of this story. She probably tells herself she was under pressure, that the debts were crushing, that she was going to take care of me, just in a different way. People rarely see themselves clearly when money is involved. But she lied. About everything. She pretended to love you while she was planning to take your house. I put my arm around his shoulder. She does love me. That's what makes it so complicated. Love and greed aren't mutually exclusive, Caleb. People can hold both at the same time. Your mother loved me enough to invite me for lamb stew and call me dad in that voice that makes my chest hurt. She just loved the idea of financial security more. Or maybe she was scared. Maybe the debts felt like drowning and my money looked like the only lifeboat. I'm not excusing what she did. I'll never excuse it. But I'm also not going to pretend it was simple, because it wasn't. He was quiet for a while. "Do you think I'll ever see her again?" "I think that's going to be up to her, buddy. The restraining order expires eventually. Whether she reaches out, and whether you want to hear what she has to say, that'll be your choice. Not mine." He nodded. "I miss her sometimes. Then I remember the emails, and I feel sick for missing her. That's the most human thing in the world, Caleb. Missing someone and being angry at them at the same time. You don't have to pick one." In April, the snow melted and we started on the garden. I showed Caleb how Dorothy used to prepare the soil, mixing in compost from the bin she'd kept going for 20 years. He was methodical about it, careful, the way he was about everything. We planted vegetables where the roses used to be. Tomatoes, zucchini, peppers, basil. It felt right. Not a replacement, but a continuation. We put in a small stone border around the garden, and on the largest stone, Caleb carved something with a chisel he'd borrowed from my workshop. Dorothy Aldridge. Family isn't always blood. It's who stays. I stared at it for a long time. Your grandmother would have loved this, I said. I know, he said. That's why I did it. In June, Raymond called with an update. Phil, the Crown attorney, filed charges. Andrea and Wesley pled guilty to one count of attempted fraud over $5,000. They received suspended sentences, 2 years probation, and mandatory community service. It's on their criminal record now. And what does that mean? Practically speaking, it means it's over. They can't come back. They can't refile for guardianship. And any future attempt to contest your will or access your assets will be viewed through the lens of their criminal conviction. You're protected, Phil. Fully and permanently. I thanked him. I meant it from the bottom of everything I have left. That night, Caleb was at the dining table doing calculus homework. I was in my chair with a book I wasn't really reading. The house was quiet in the way houses get when two people are comfortable enough with each other to not need conversation. Dorothy and I had that. I never thought I'd have it again. Grandpa, Caleb said, not looking up from his problem set. Thanks for letting me live here. I put my book down. Caleb, you didn't just save me legally. You saved me from becoming bitter. You gave me someone to cook breakfast for, someone to hike with, someone to build a garden with. You think I'm doing you a favor? You've got it backwards. He smiled. The same smile Dorothy used to have when she thought I was being sentimental. We're even, then, he said. We're even. I'm 71 years old. My daughter tried to have me declared mentally incompetent so she could sell my home and liquidate my life savings. She staged photographs, manipulated my doctor, manufactured evidence, and filed a fraudulent petition with the Ontario Superior Court. She did it because her husband lost $350,000 in a failed startup and they were drowning in debt. She looked at me and didn't see her father. She saw $4.2 million. She lost. I won. But it doesn't feel like winning. It feels like surviving, which is different. Winning implies celebration, and there's nothing to celebrate when your own child betrays you. What there is, though, is a 16-year-old kid who chose integrity when it cost him everything. Who walked into his grandfather's kitchen with a phone full of evidence and a heart full of terror and did the hardest thing a child can do, which is tell the truth about their parents. Caleb lost his home, his family as he knew it, his sense of safety. And in return, he got a 71-year-old roommate who burns toast half the time and can't identify a single bird without a guidebook. I'd like to think he got the better end of that deal, but honestly, I know I did. To anyone out there who might be going through something like this, I want to tell you what I wish someone had told me. If someone in your family is trying to take control of your life, your money, your home, your decisions, trust that sick feeling in your gut. You're not paranoid. You're not confused. You're not losing your mind. If someone is working to make you believe you're incompetent, it's because they need you to be. It serves them, not you. Get a lawyer. Not their lawyer, yours. Document everything. Get an independent assessment. And don't be ashamed to fight back, because standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. And if you're an adult child watching this, let me say something your parents might be too polite to say. You are not entitled to their money. You are not entitled to their house. You are not entitled to their retirement savings or their investment portfolio or the home they built with decades of work and sacrifice. If you're in financial trouble, that's your problem to solve. Not theirs. And if you're desperate enough to file false paperwork with a court to steal from the person who raised you, then you've already lost the only thing that ever really mattered. You've lost who you are. Andrea got her suspended sentence and her 2 years of probation. What did it cost her? Her father. Her son. Her reputation. Her integrity. Everything Dorothy and I tried to teach her about honesty and decency and treating people with respect. Gone. For a house she never got to sell and money she never got to spend. Was it worth it? I'll never ask her. I already know the answer. As for me, I've got a grandson to raise. I've got a garden coming in nicely, tomatoes that Dorothy would be proud of even if mine are never as perfect as hers. I've got Tuesday mornings at the food bank and Saturday hikes in Gatineau Park and a stone in the backyard that says everything I need it to say. The house in Westboro isn't just a property worth $2.1 million anymore. It's the place where Caleb is learning what family actually means. It's the place where Dorothy's memory lives in every corner, every room, every scratch on the hardwood floor. It's the place where justice was done and love was redefined. And that, I promise you, is worth more than anything anyone could ever put a number on.